Hi kindergarten families, happy Friday. Oh my goodness, I'm so very nervous about doing this. I don't know what I was thinking, but I'm just going with a gut feeling and I'm going with my very strong intuitive sense. I wanted to get across to you all in a really fun and interactive way, but not only that, I wanted to speak to you all just like we would if we were sitting down in the office or sitting down within a space in the center and having those one-on-one conversations. It's always really, really nice to have those face-to-face interactions, especially when these people are with your children for majority of the week, majority of the day, and having that familiar face or hearing that familiar voice is always a really nice thing to do. So with Arthur absolutely smashing it out on Story Park and writing beautifully and writing, most importantly, genuine and authentic learning moments and memories, I thought, all right, well, let's be a little bit different and be the yang to Arthur's yin, and I'm going to do a vlog. I want to say thank you so very much to the two families out of all of the kindergarten class. Two families took the time and took the energy to write two really fantastic questions that come up all the time as a kindergarten teacher. They're the questions that always get asked. So well done to you. So Florence's mum and Arian's mum, thank you so very much. It means a lot, and hopefully you watching it will also get a lot out of this, and it is my hope to put all of this together in the near future and write a book about these types of questions and these types of replies as to help families better understand the world of early childhood education and really give it the respect and the love that it truly deserves. But I'm not going to get into that too much because, you know, I'll be here all day and it's Friday and I'm talking to myself in a tablet. So moving right along. Let's begin. So, reader, you write here, "Hi Kelly, and thanks so much for this opportunity." You're welcome. I would like to know, how can I encourage my child to be more perseverant with her activities? For example, if I try to do a puzzle with Florence, she will be interested for about 2 minutes and give up as soon as it gets a bit harder. Thank you. Thank you, reader. A really, 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 really good question. So when I read that question and I thought about it, and if we were having a one-on-one discussion right now, I would give you the exact same advice and opinion that I would as I'm doing now. And that would be, first and foremost, what we need to remember about early childhood education is that there is always a method to the madness. Truly good, in tune, well-educated, very open-minded teachers, educators, everything that goes in that classroom, everything that goes in that space, there's a reason behind it. There is, like we say, there's a method to the madness. There will always be a rationale behind why we put something in the classroom. Very rarely do you see a good kindergarten teacher and a good educator put something in a space just because. Now, a lot of the time this is the truth, we do not have the time to explain to every family, explain to every parent why we're putting things where we're putting them, nor do we have the time and the energy to then tell the educators, the assistants and the relievers and the planning covers and all the students as in studying to become teachers, why we're doing what we're doing. So that's why it's really important that you take note of the development areas that Arthur and I have written about. It's up in the room when you walk into the room, but it's also on Story Park. And it goes through the classroom, it goes through the classroom and all of the areas and why there are certain things in certain areas. For example, don't worry, reader, I am getting to your question. Why are there animals, like not stuffed animals, why are there figurine animals in the block corner? Yeah. Why are there pop sticks in a container at the Play-Doh table? Why are there marbles on the pasting table, right? That's examples. Everything that is in that room, there is a reason behind it. And majority of the time, there's a reason behind, the reason behind it is that it's catering for a child's interest, a child's passion, a child's quirky personality trait. There is always a method to the madness, okay? And sometimes your kindergarten teachers or your educators are able to communicate that with you and able to verbally tell you what it's about. But majority of the time, we're so busy. There is so much to do in such a short amount of time. We get very little planning. We get very little time. In fact, there's hardly any time to do things while all the children are in session as well. So you need to be realistic and practical. And majority of the time, the team in the room understand why and how things are in the room. But it is very much child focused, and there is a deep reason for it. So, in a roundabout way, reader, I really hope that I've shed some light into things that are in our classroom are not just put out there just for the sake of it. It's like when we do an order for a craft order, there is always a reason for the things that we're ordering, okay? So when you walk into especially a kindergarten classroom, it really should be a gymnasium of all sorts of things. I get very suspicious when I walk into classrooms and it's the same stuff on the same table every day throughout the year. How is that following a child's interest? How is that following a development of a child's personality, their passions, their interests? Just like you and I, children fluctuate between what they love and what they don't love. So we need to cater for that in a practical and hands-on way. And so everything in the room should be justified. On the rare occasion, we will just put things out for the sake of it, but very, very rarely does that happen. So everything in that room is catering for the collective, the group of children as a collective, or children individually. So it's a beautiful infusion of both. As educators, we never force. We never force, we invite. It's always an open invitation. It's always an open invitation to come and try a new activity, to come and try a new learning skill, to come and try a group time. We never force, okay? So when you've got a child at a puzzle, for example, Florence at a puzzle, and she's manipulating the puzzle for a little while and she's playing happily, it's not that she stops because it's too hard and she doesn't want to persevere. She stops because she's totally uninterested. She's totally not fascinated, and it's not resonating with how she likes to learn and what she likes to learn about. Florence in particular is a really wonderful example of someone who is incredibly creative. And Florence is a student in the classroom that is very, very kinesthetic, which means Florence will learn a lot more easily, naturally, free-flowing, if you like, within her body through the use of her hands, through the use of doing, okay? Florence is also an incredibly visual learner. So she loves color, and she'll comment on my hair and she'll comment on my earrings. She's very visual. She's also very, very aware of people's emotions and their feelings, and she's very switched on to the well-being of others. So first of all, with Florence, never hover. Never hover. So Florence is someone, and this goes for all children who are kinesthetic, who are visual learners. They, majority of the time, they need freedom. They need space to express. They need freedom and the space to take their time to absorb what they're learning, yeah? So never hover. Number two, Florence and children who are very creative like that, they need lots and lots and lots of repetition. So lots and lots of repetition will build perseverance, will build stamina, will build, most importantly, inner self-esteem. Yep, and that's when you can really capture the essence of a true love of learning. When you've got a confident child who's had the opportunity to repeat and repeat and repeat, they're going to persevere. They're going to stay at activities because previously they've been given that time and that space to do so. You're not a bad parent. There's nothing wrong with sitting down and trying to get your children to do these things. But what we have to remember is that there is a very, very, very new way of teaching the future generations in our childcare settings and our sessional kinders and our primary schools and our secondary schools. And the old way of doing things is no longer done. And that includes sitting down with children and doing the same activity all at the one time until we stop. There has to be a start and a finish. We no longer teach like that, and I'll go into it a little bit in a moment. And there's such a huge amount of evidence out there with really alarming research that states why we don't teach like that anymore. And but I'm not going into that right now. So to teach Florence perseverance, she needs repetition. Children who are creative, and you'll tell a child who is a kinesthetic learner because they are quite expressive. They're quite expressive, they're quite active, they're very vocal. So if they don't agree with something, they'll tell you straight away. They will share they'll share their opinions and their thoughts and their feelings. And that's a very kinesthetic learner because we can't keep it in. We have to express. Yes, I'm a very kinesthetic learner myself, so I really understand where those creative traits are developing from. Repetition, space, but also one of the most important things as well with children similar to Florence and how she'll just, it looks like she's not interested after a few minutes, is that they absolutely need to learn to play with things that they like, that they enjoy, that they thrive on. Why do we as adults put all of this as just, food for thought? Why do we as adults put things in front of our children that we really want them to learn, that we really want them to get the hang of, i.e. scissors and cutting? You see it all the time. We want our children to practice cutting, and we do all these things with them, and they struggle and the fingers don't fit, and they get stressed out, and it's a very, very stressful experience for that child. And the number one thing in primary school that is attached to quite a lot of stress is learning how to use scissors. It's just an example, but you see where I'm going with it. We as adults, we know what we want them to learn, but I think we forget sometimes as well that we must first remember what they're passionate about. What are they into at the moment? Is it the Baby Shark song? That song. The Baby Shark song. If they love that song, and you're finding it really hard for them to settle down before dinner time, for example, why not crank that song up, let them dance, get all of that excess energy out of their body, and then come invite them for dinner, and they will eat better, they will sleep better, they will wind down more because they've had the opportunity to get it out of their body. They've had the opportunity to repeat whatever it is they had to, they couldn't do it at kinder or primary school today, and they get to do it at home or wherever. It's just an example, and I hope that makes sense. It's also one thing I do want to say about your question, reader, about, getting them to do an activity and persevere, is that we, as parents, we're so incredibly hard on ourselves, and we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to educate our children. There's so much pressure on families to educate children, and especially when it comes to literacy and numeracy. I'm going to talk about that in a moment, but we need to just take a step back. We need to just ground ourselves and remember that our children are learning every second of the day. Every moment they're learning, from learning how to take their bag out of the locker and do the zip on the bag. They're learning how to remember where their drink bottle is and go and get their drink bottle. If it's empty, where do I go to? Who do I go to fill it up? They're learning how to come down the steps out into the outdoor yard and find out where their friends are and have a think about how they're going to initiate conversation to play. Who are they going to play with? How are they going to play with? What are they going to play with? They are learning all the time. They are playing, and through playing and in natural catering environments, they will learn a catalogue of information. And it's important to remember not to force and not to suggest what we feel that they need to learn, because that's what primary school's for, that's what secondary school's for, that's what higher education is all for. And we won't get that, that zest for learning and a love of learning if we aren't provided those fun, organic, if you like, organic, free, expressive, play-based experiences. Because you can imagine if we're forcing our children or getting all the children to come in at one table and draw a rose, and the rose has to have pink petals and green stems, and we're creating a culture of non-intentional teaching. It's all about us and what we need to get done in a day and tick that off. Yep, great, they can draw a flower, great, they can find the color green. If that makes any sense. We don't want our children to have, what I'm trying to say, we don't want our children to have a negative psychological attachment to how we learn, a love of learning. I mean, I ask you the question, as parents, what is your earliest memory of being in school? Can you remember kindergarten? Can you remember primary school? I know for me, I can still remember my kindergarten teacher, and she was effervescent and she was warm. And I remember her getting a few of us up for group time, show and tell, if you like. And she told us in the group time, I remember her saying that when you come up and you show and you tell your piece of story or your instrument or whatever it may have been. Specifically, I remember her teaching me manners. So to say thank you and please, not that my family didn't, sorry mum, but manners. I also remember my teacher teaching me to give eye contact, and when I feel comfortable and when I feel safe, to look at people in the eye that I care about. These lifelong skills that I carry with me forever, that I have carried with me forever, but also my memories and the feeling of going to that environment, going to kindergarten and getting to choose different things at tables and getting to be social and dress up or color with crayons or create different sculptures with clay and Play-Doh and paint on the windows and, share fruit with each other. These are the things I remember from my earliest childhood memories. And I'm 34 now, going on 35. So for me, that was super, super crucial because I love learning. I love learning about different things. And it's something that I'll probably always do. But would I have become like that if my first learning experiences and my first learning environments were forceful or clinical? Probably not. Probably not. In fact, I know I would have been. I was given the freedom, I was given the repetition, I was given the space, and all those things that I'm talking about, that I have spoken about. I hope that's answered your question. Thank you. Part 2 next.